This picture, posted to 4chan in 2019, would later make imaginations all across the internet run wild. It would go on to acquire a catalog of eldritch lore, securing its place as one of the internet's most obsessed over pieces of folklore. It's called the Backrooms, an alternate reality composed of an infinite array of hallways just like this one. As a collaborative work of fiction, it reflects a deep-rooted existential anxiety encouraged by the condition of the world today. The original post describes how if you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality, a video game term used to describe when players glitch outside of physical boundaries, you'll end up in the backrooms. You can do your best to find the exit, but nobody has been confirmed to fully escape back into reality. Everyone's interpretation of the backrooms appears to be different. There are a lot of lore-expanding posts and several wikis with people devising new levels to the backrooms, all with their own similarly mind-bending qualities. But the original concept and photo are, I think, the most unsettling. For this video, I'm going to ignore these additional levels and the rumored creatures that inhabit them and focus on the core concept of the backrooms. Let's talk about the fear of being forgotten. In a short segment of his monumental text, Being in Time, the philosopher Martin Heidegger states that one of the ways we experience the existence of other people in the world is through the things they involve themselves with. Ever see a boat floating at a pier? Maybe you didn't exactly think, I wonder whose boat that is, but you did likely recognize that the boat belongs to somebody. Somebody designed it, somebody manufactured it, and now somebody owns it. In a way, that boat serves as a symbol for the existence of other people. The structure of the world's worldhood is such that others are not proximately present at hand as free-floating subjects along with other things, but show themselves in the world in their special environmental being, and do so in terms of what is ready at hand in that world. Now, imagine if that boat wasn't floating at a pier, but was marooned in a desert in a place where nobody could be found for miles. Encountering it there would certainly raise some questions, because the boat as a phenomenon conflicts with the context of its location. Though it'd be useful to be able to use this boat as an indication that the person responsible for its existence there might be nearby, we can't truly rely on it to do so. That doesn't mean that the parties involved with this boat never existed, rather, the boat's traits generate general ambiguity. That boat in the desert is an example of what's called the uncanny. If the backrooms feels even vaguely familiar, you've likely been in similar looking spaces before. Any vague sense of familiarity is quickly overwhelmed by everything else, though. A lot of design has to do with intent. When something is designed, we can discern its possible patterns to understand its purpose. We expect something from these spaces, and we devise the plans for our behavior in them accordingly. This is what's called a schema in psychology. But patterns are human details, and the backrooms as an alternate reality wasn't designed. Its random structure and physics-defying spaces are only a further testament to the point. The existence of the backrooms therefore generates confusion, ambiguity, and unease. It's easier to read malicious intent in something we know very little about. The backrooms aren't only unsettling because we can't use our preconceived schemata to plan what we should do, but also because human minds and hands had nothing to do with bringing it into existence. The backrooms merely are. Can an infinite array of office spaces exist without people to fund, design, build, and own them? In the case of the backrooms, the answer is an impossible yes. The backrooms isn't a symbol for the existence of other people. The backrooms has an unreadable intent. The backrooms has forgotten humanity. There have been moments in my life where I've taken a quick nap on the couch and lazily woken up to the sound of other people talking in the next room, as if I wasn't listening. I'd lay still, trying to fall back asleep, and they'd continue to talk. But it struck me on one occasion that if everybody I cared about completely forgot about me, this is exactly how their lives would look. Their lives would be fundamentally the same, but there would undoubtedly be something missing from mine. There lies the potential for a profound cruelty in forgetting someone for that reason. Tsutomu Nihei's manga Blame is set in an impossible, algorithmically decided city from the far future. At one time, humanity was in control of the giant automated robots used for building the city through an advanced form of internet only accessible to those with the necessary genetic trait. After a virus neutralized that gene, humanity lost control of their automated systems, and their security defenses eliminated everyone they found. Without access to human instructions, the city's builders continued to build indefinitely, far beyond the limits of comprehension. It's a city where humanity has been forgotten in just about every way other than the attempts at its total extinction, and yet it's forced to survive all the same. The events of the manga depict the millennia-long wanderings of Keely, a mostly silent cyborg with a very powerful gun, and his search for the net terminal gene. Before his work as an artist, Nihei studied architecture. It's fitting then that much of the manga's story takes a back seat as Nihei allows the art of this haunting cry of a city to shine through. Page upon page depicts the illustration of useless, nonsensical spaces barely holding themselves together. To call the megastructure huge would be an understatement. There have been a lot of guesses as to its size. The most commonly pitched theory is that it's the size of a Dyson sphere, a theoretical construct that would encircle a star and extend out to about the orbit of Jupiter. Any guesses are truly meaningless, though. For all practical purposes, no matter how far you wander, you'll never escape it. This feeling of the world forgetting the people in it, while hyperbolized in both the Backrooms and Blame, is a relatable part of the modern condition. In order to explore it further, we need to talk about the idea of a lost future. One of the most intriguing bits of Backrooms lore is that in the Backrooms, time simply ceases to exist. All that's available is the present, which is also simultaneously the past and the future. The term that is used to describe the philosophy of this kind of temporal disjunction is hauntology. First introduced by Jacque Derrida in his book Spectres of Marx, the word is actually a rather clever pun. It combines the French word to haunt with ontologie, the philosophical field of study concerned with being. When spliced together, the resulting word is ontology, which with its silent H sounds quite similar to ontology. It's clever because hauntology focuses on the influence of things that don't exist on the things that do, especially with relations to ghosts of the past and lost futures. Perhaps you caught on earlier to the horrifying implications about time in the Backrooms. It isn't time that doesn't exist there, it's memory. Anything that occurs simply isn't remembered, as if the present was all that existed. On top of its already maddening hallways, this additional layer of mental haze further structures the Backrooms as an embodied twilight of dementia. Hauntology tells us that the 21st century suffers from a similar memory problem. Today's cultural forms are dominated by a resurgence of the old forms of the past, to the point where we readily accept them as a part of our time. The perpetual re-release of Skyrim as new is just one example. The architecture of the Backrooms itself is another. This procedural generation of the past into the present presents us with a unique dilemma, what philosopher Marc Fisher called the slow cancellation of the future. There is, as a result, a wispy sense of melancholia to our time, a tired longing for something we can't identify. The idea of a brighter future failed to materialize, and now haunts our dreams as a half-embodied entity, like a mirage born of desert air. The same things are continuously repackaged and presented as new. Sometimes it feels like the future we were supposed to be a part of simply forgot us here. The Backrooms are an artistic representation of today's cultural stagnation. The deja vu of hallways is just another way of expressing the deja vu of culture. In his video on liminal spaces, Solar Sands discusses at length how nostalgia is a fundamental part of photographs like this one of the Backrooms. But that isn't exactly true. Some of the spaces depicted in such photographs no longer exist, and do embrace us in yearning for a time where they did. But there are others like the Backrooms that, though dated, also seem timeless, and nonetheless prevail in our washed-out world. Blame's first volume starts off with the introduction, maybe on Earth, maybe in the future. Its proposed future already lost to the eternal present we soak ourselves in. Maybe Blame is a new kind of future, or maybe timeless replication is all we'll ever know. But how long can the lifespan of the past be stretched out? As is the case with the neogenesis of hallways in the Backrooms, the more the old forms are resurrected, the more they dissolve into madness and nonsense. Entropy always ends with decay. Fisher tells us that the slow cancellation of the future has been accompanied by a deflation of expectations. The euphoria and rush of previous novelties are degraded to little more than cheap tricks through their repetition. Mundanity is something one comes to expect. The Shining made good use of this notion. Jacque's descent into psychosis is furthered by spectral forces of which his alcoholism is one, but the thing Kubrick's film makes sure to accent is the role repetition plays in the process. Much of the film's beginning half is marked by two things: the monotony of Jacque's writing and the deserted spaces of the overlooked hotel. It's that chorus of empty time imbued into the hotel itself that lulls him towards the old forms. All work and no play makes Jacque a dull boy. Jacque suffers a debilitating defeat at the hands of this mundane routine. Boredom may not be the precise word for his attitude, but his inability to produce the novel that will manifest his desired future may be a result of the space itself. To lick his wounds, he embraces the old forms, draped in gold and contorting endlessly, further giving himself up to the influence the hotel had on him in the first place, whether he knows it or not. Jacque sees things that aren't there anymore, and what he sees prompts a swift destruction of his future.
Goddamn soul. Just a glass of beer.
As much as one might wish they could grab again at the delicious pleasure of a past age, the price you'll pay for even a taste of that bourbon will take everything, and the present moment will only seem duller as your expectations dim. The gold ballroom is fundamentally rotten, the smell of decay stripped it of its grandeur long ago, and that rot is spreading into Jacque's life through the resurrection of his worst habits too far gone. The backrooms are a mildewy artifact of entropy and decay in the same fashion as the Overlook Hotel. You can stretch these spaces into infinity, but don't be surprised if you find something you don't like, or if it finds you first. There aren't any such monstrous entities in our world, of course, just that melancholia and depressive nostalgia. Auge's idea of a non-place is a generic space that disregards the identity of the individuals who inhabit it. Spaces like bus stops, hotel hallways, and airports are designed for use by a nameless multitude. Non-places aren't designed to remember you, nor are you really meant to remember them either. An undisputable part of such spaces is precisely how common they are. They're just about inescapable. The paradox of non-places, though, according to Auge, is that anyone can feel at home in them regardless of past experience, because they are equally alienating to everyone. There's a sense of familiarity to them, though, even if they are generally indistinguishable. Once, while taking a flight alone, I ended up stranded at the airport at night due to a delayed departure. The next flight I would be catching wasn't until the morning, so I tried to find a comfortable spot in the empty hallway and fall asleep. Every time I just about dozed off, I'd jolt awake, however. I didn't feel enough at ease with the fluorescent lights that never ended up switching off, and there was something uncanny about the spacious but deserted hall. Although I had been in similar airports plenty of times, that familiar environment felt too unfamiliar to fall asleep in. I didn't get any sleep that night. Even though non-places can be seen as a regrettable part of our world, they resemble the vision of the future for past architects. In the worlds of Adrian Forty, author of Concrete and Culture, concrete buildings represent a set of ideas about the state of the world and what the future was imagined to be that we want to preserve. We should remember what people were thinking 50 years ago. If we tear these buildings down, we will lose all of that. But as a relic of a potential future from the past, non-places are what have, in part, led to a cancellation of the future. Airports from the 90s look just about the same as the one I spent the night in, even almost 30 years later. It's the repeated forms of these spaces that find a voice in the deep indifference of the backrooms and our fear of being forgotten that it represents. This infinite maze, this is only the beginning. A few months ago, I was interviewed for a documentary on liminal spaces for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Towards the end of the interview, I was asked the question.
Do you think that this fixation on liminality comes from stress that comes from all of the societal and economic change and political change that's happening around the world?
I didn't have a very good answer at the time, but the question did get me thinking. What I've discussed here is a fragment of my amended answer. The universe is forgetting you. Yellow walls fold in on an infinite corridor. An incessant hum hangs over the moist carpet. Don't bother worrying about falling through reality. In many ways, you already have. If you like this video, you will love my video on liminal spaces. And thank you so much to my patrons. I'll catch you in the next one.